welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about animation, TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. Today, part 2 of our look back at Batman Beyond. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
And I'm Clifton.
All right, so Batman Beyond is now an entire person who can rent a car old. All right, so be sure to check out part 1, which was released last week if you didn't check it out already, where we go over the pilot and some of the development process. We left a lot of our favorite episodes to go over, which is what we'll do in this episode. So let's start talking episodes. So what were some of our favorites? Clifton, I'll set you up. You love Dead Man's Hand.
Oh, yeah, it's true. I have pages and pages of notes on Dead Man's Hand, so I can't get into all of it. But I took a lot of notes watching Dead Man's Hand again, which is, quick summary, Dead Man's Hand is the one where Terry meets the Royal Flush Gang for the very first time, and he also falls for a new girl with a dark secret.
I'm with you. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a good one.
So we get the Royal Flush Gang, who... we're in the comics. It's been seen once in animation before in the late Super Friends. What was it? Galactic. What's the
Guardians?
Galactic Guardians season. Yeah, like the Dark Side season,
where
they appear, and it's there's a similar theme in that one of where 10 is the reluctant one in that Super Friends show, and so I think really they were kind of like drawing from that too a little bit, kind of referencing that a little bit, but. This episode is so good. Like, I love this episode. And it's not just because it's super teen melodrama, but I love that it's super teen melodrama.
I was going to say, it is your wheelhouse.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like a really cool idea for villains that had been underutilized and stuff in the past. And I couldn't believe they didn't retrofit them into Justice League.
Yeah.
Or something else later. Because they set it up everything where you see like, Batman, Bruce tells Terry about, oh, it's a family that just does this. And when some go to jail, the new ones come in and they've been doing it. I've been fighting these people forever.
Right.
And then even King tells Jack in the Royal Flush Gang that he's like, yeah, we went up against Batman and he basically put the gang out of commission for a while. And now that's why I'm back in Gotham to get revenge, more or less.
Right.
And I was like, how do we not get a Justice League episode of that?
They do pop up.
They do pop, right. I was going to say they do pop up, but it's not, it's a much, well, it's one of those, it's a moving episode, right?
I do remember that, but that's the one with the young girl, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember
She comes back in epilogue that we were talking about there, but they're introduced in Wild Cards, which is the Joker Vegas episode.
Right.
And it's not a family, right? They're people part of a like a government, like a Cadmus thing.
Right.
But so I'm with you. I mean, like, I'm so fascinated by the Royal Flush Gang about like, okay, so you introduce them in Justice League as this. So now how do you get to them? Like, which one of them started having a family and kept the gimmick going?
Right.
And he says something about like, this is the Spade suit.
Okay.
So it gave me a sense that one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Bret Hart, but it made me think about like, I wonder if there's a Hart family.
Probably.
Right.
Also,
diamonds, clubs. Right.
Which I would kill to see that. I would kill to see
the Hart's Royal Flush Gang.
Royal Flush Gang.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, the Royal Flush Gang for me is like the way kind of like the Wrecking Crew is in Marvel.
Yeah.
The idea of like no one really wants to flesh them out completely.
Right.
But they want to be used when you need kind of a throwaway bit or a throwaway gag for, how you're going to set up your opening sequence. They're not used enough. I mean, there's Justice League issues with them, obviously. Like when they first appear with Amos Fortune back in the Silver Age, it's a cool idea. And then throughout the Bronze Age and the Modern Age, and then like Booster Gold's audition is dealing with the Royal Flush Gang.
Okay.
When he first joins. But it's one of those things where I always like them. The motif is really cool.
Yeah, it's such a cool look, especially this like flying around on their cars. It just fits in this world. It just fits in this Batman Beyond world where everyone's flying in flying cars or just flying around in a bat suit.
Yeah, they've used that. They use that throughout the comics appearances too. But it's one of those things where I agree with you here. It works really well. I think the only other place I could think of where they appear is Babel. Like they're like the opening bit in Babel too, right?
Babel's so good. Oh, I love Babel.
Yeah.
Who voiced the King? You remember?
No, I'm talking Babel. Babel's the one the directive. That one. The one that's
Doom. Right. Justice League Doom.
That's Justice League Doom.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel story. Yeah, I thought you meant the season 2 episode Babel.
No. That's why I was clarifying. I'm talking about where they're used animated wise. They're used in that again, but they're also the throwaway bit. They're the opening. Right. They're the opening act for before we get to the actual bigger threat.
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of potential for them. I know in Villains United way back when, Gail Simone used them as like the idea that they were kind of everywhere.
Right.
You know, there was like a bigger group of them. Like the idea of like, no, there's
like a whole syndicate.
Yeah, there was like 52 of them, and there were different, right. Like you said, Zach, there were different suits.
Okay.
Right.
So the idea has been out there for a while. But no, I love the Royal Flush Gang. I think those episodes, you know, kind of like, and again, I don't remember where we talked about 10 in another podcast episode.
Yeah,
but
it was in like a Valentine's Day episode where we got into a heated conversation about Dana versus 10.
Thank you.
Right.
I knew we had some kind of argument about.
Yeah, it was a little while back. But
how well that works.
Yeah. Another thing, just Royal Flush Gang in general, like I really like that when Batman calls them the aristocrats of crime. I just think it's like a cool like little moniker.
That's nice.
Like brings a lot to the imagination. But yeah, like what this episode, Dead Man's Hand, is the heart of this episode to me is Melanie 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that you instantly kind of see her story the first time you see her outside of costume when you don't know who she is yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we see the Royal Flush Gang do their thing, and then, you know, Terry tries to stop them, and then Terry is late for a date with Dana and rushes to the club, but way late. And Dana's, you know, like fed up with it at this point in time, saying, you know, there's only so many times before I'll take a hint.
Mm-hmm.
And you brushed me off enough. And then in that fight, it cuts to a shot from outside the window looking into the club, and you see a girl sitting there outside of the nightclub who perks up and watches this fight happening inside. And she's just kind of sitting there with her legs up and her arms, you know, holding her knees, looking inside the club. And I just caught that shot this time of it instantly portraying like, here's a girl that wants to be in there, wants to be living the life with the fun kids, wants to be doing the kid things. And you have Terry, who also wants to be living the fun life with the fun kids, but can't. And they both can't because of her family, him because of Batman. And it just shows it in one shot. And I thought it was so well done this time. And then they have their, their romance when Dana's kicked him to the curb. And there's just so much that's good in this episode. I love this episode. And it is super teen melodrama, but that's what I love.
But it's good. I mean, that's the appeal of doing this character, I think, right? Is the thing that I remember them saying too for development is they were like Spider-Man.
Mm.
They could use Spider-Man as and not have him be quite so quippy and everything like that. But, you know, they were like, that stuff was at least as interesting as the Spider-Man stuff, if not more.
Yeah.
You know?
And that is the aspect in these episodes. Like the episodes I liked a lot in Batman Beyond are the ones that expounded his teen world more so than his Batman world even. Yeah. And this is one. And there's just so many like little teen elements, like 80s kind of things. Like she wears his jacket.
Yeah.
When they meet up in the rain or in like one of the dates, and she takes it with her. And I was just like, that's such like a nice little like, you know, teen drama moment. Like he's lending her his jacket and she's taking it wherever she's going. He'll get it back sometime.
It's nice to know that still happens in 2070.
Right. Yeah. But there's like the scene when they meet up because they like, he's got to be Batman and she's got to be 10, and they both are fighting. And then because of that, they're late to their date, not knowing who each other are.
Mm-hmm.
And then they both show up late and like, it's okay. It's not Dana yelling at him because she's late. 10's late too. So now they're in the rain and there's no dialogue. And it's just like, she runs up, hugs him and kisses him.
Yeah.
And it's just so many nice little moments. And it's like a super 80s teen romance soundtrack playing at that point in time. Which there was an awesome punk song playing in the nightclub when Dana's breaking up with him. And I don't know what song it is. I don't know if it's a song or if they composed it, but I was this time listening to it, I was like, that is a really cool song. So if anyone can help me out to know what that song is, or if it was composed for the show,
I gotta rewatch the episode. I might have it. If it's on the soundtrack, because I have the score and stuff like that.
Yeah, it has lyrics, which is why I don't know if it was made just for the show, since it's not only score. Like there's vocals on it.
Okay.
But it's a cool song. But yeah, just the other little thing. Like when I was referring to their rule, their rule about not having a Joker beyond or no Poison Ivy beyond, just talking about that rule and them sticking a little fast to the rule, I think. This is the other example I was thinking of besides Derek Powers being obviously like the guy that he should keep going up against is 10.
Yeah.
And they draw attention to it, where at the end of the episode, after Terry has to turn her in, which there's really a fun moment in that fight where he's fighting her. He knows who she is at that point. She doesn't know who he is. He hesitates punching her, and she does not hesitate punching him. Like she just clocks him when he won't hit her. And that actually might be before he knew. I can't remember. But at the end of the episode, it's him and Bruce. Like Bruce figures out what's been going on this whole time, why Terry's been distracted, because he sees when, Terry's watching her get carted into a paddy wagon, and she sees Terry seeing her get taken off. And he basically asks Bruce, like, has anything like this ever happened to you? And Bruce is like, well, let me tell you about a woman named Selena Kyle.
Right.
And I was like, this could have been his Catwoman.
Of course.
Like, it should have been his Catwoman. And they never, I mean, she does reappear in a couple episodes and has some good moments, but like, it's never that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never his Catwoman. And I think again, like they stuck so fast to their rule that they were like, we can't have him have a Catwoman, so we can't do that with it.
So silly.
Like they call it out in the episode.
Right.
So they call attention to it. So that says to me like you're fine with it, and it doesn't seem silly to me that he would have a version of that. It would be silly to me if she was also with a cat motif.
Right. That would be too tight a circle.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what's puzzling to me, as I'm like, okay, that's what you want to avoid. But I think that moment at the end where he's like, let me tell you about Selena Kyle.
Right.
And it's a nice moment where they can, what am I trying to say? They can sort of
commiserate.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
And it doesn't sound like, to me, that doesn't sound like Bruce being like, and now I'm going to tell you how to avoid the mistakes I made. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like, yeah, this is a good time. Like,
Right.
This is part of it. This is just part of the gig.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a fondness that the way he says it.
It's almost that Zuko and Sokka moment of that's rough, buddy.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's a great line.
They're not. At that point, they're not really teacher and student. At that point, they're just two guys talking, and that's what I love about that moment.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, let me tell you about Selena Kyle. Like I know, Bruce is, he's an old guy, but of course he has all the memories of Catwoman, and then of course he realizes, yeah, this is a similar situation. Like you said, Clifton, it's just part of the gig. You're just gonna have to deal with the fact that attractive women are gonna throw themselves at you sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
I hesitate bringing this up because I don't have an artist name that I could credit, or I may not even be able to find the image, but somebody did fan art of Melanie in the Batman Beyond suit.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's just like, so she's in the suit, but just mask off, but the bat was yellow.
Right.
Right. And it just made me go like, God, I want to see that story.
Right.
I want to see that story so bad.
Yeah.
All right. Frank, what was one of your favorites?
What was mine? Let me think. I'm trying to think off the top of my head because I didn't write down episodes. I had, like I said, I watched the ones that I watched, but I didn't get a chance to watch everything that I like. I love the call, right? The call's a 2-part with the Justice League. That's one of my favorite. I like that one because I love, I really do like future stories of what, and then you get to extrapolate backwards. And at that point, we didn't really have Justice League, or did we?
No.
Okay, so we didn't have Justice League. So basically, it was kind of carte blanche what they wanted to do. And the team is fun. Like you have, what was it, Micron, which is kind of like the Atom / kind of like Ant-Man, Giant Man.
Yeah, Atom
character.
Smasher. It's a combination of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Aqua Girl.
Aqua Girl, yes.
Yeah, obviously, they established we have an Aquaman at that point from Superman the Animated Series. Big Barda or Barda.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right. Couldn't use Wonder Woman.
Right. Kind of a Buddhist Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And then Warhawk, which I love. I mean, they don't really come out and say it because I don't think they even knew at the time who Warhawk was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
We get that told later on in a Justice League Unlimited story.
Yeah, I think that's a retrofitted one.
Yeah, but it works. It's such a great. I mean, it works really, really well. And those things I think those are, when they're done well, they're always a lot of fun. I think those are always fun.
Yeah.
But the idea of of Terry being noticed and kind of recruited, kind of headhunted for it.
Yeah. So just the setup for this episode is that we find out there is a Justice League in this universe, for one, which I don't think they'd ever mentioned before in any of the episodes. And then we are introduced to Micron. Micron is called to help a runaway train, and then it turns out to be a trap.
Right.
And Superman shows up to Terry, basically recruiting him to be like, I need you to come help me find out who sabotaged the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
So we need you on the inside to find out. That's the premise of this one.
Right.
There could be a traitor in the Justice League Unlimited.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to spoil it for you. It's on Max as of right now, so you should go watch it, because it doesn't really require you to know much more than what we've told you about the show to enjoy it. I don't think it's not real continuity heavy.
Yeah, like we said, their continuity wasn't fully established at that point in time, because this came out a year before the Justice League animated show ever started.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In my opinion, though, I think this is a show. These episodes are the ones where they start building on their continuity.
Mm-hmm.
This is really the one that I think that, there was a loose reference to the original Batman the Animated Series, but it didn't reference it a whole lot directly. We just sort of like connected it, because it was made by the same guys.
Right.
Right. And they had same general design sense and everything, but story-wise, they didn't really like talk to each other much. This one, there's like a direct reference to a Superman episode.
Right.
Right. Which makes it like, just automatically makes everything big, right? Because it's like, well, if Batman guest started Superman, then we're talking everything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like World's Finest, all happened. All of it happened.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. The main man exists, everything. All that stuff happens.
Yep.
So anything that we saw in Superman, the animated series, it's fair game at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, no, I love that one.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. I think, it's a season 3 episode. I think worth pointing out that, like, I think it took that long to convince Bruce Timm to do it.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's one of those, again, since it's not so it could have been sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like it's one of those episodes, like it's a 2-parter. So I feel like it's one of those things where that 2-parter could have gone, if they really we'd gotten past their, I think I said it last episode, the whole thing with Smallville of no tights, no flights, or, we really want to shy away from all the Batman stuff, even though we're doing a Batman in the Future show. You could have dropped that 2-parter or like season 2. You might have even done it in season 1 if you wanted to.
Right.
Because again, it's one of those things where I also like it because it's definitely an episodes or a set of episodes that really shows how Terry isn't Bruce, but he is Batman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, that's one of those things where I think when they play against that, I think it's fun to see because, again, with the whole Terry and Bruce kind of Martin Stein and Ronnie Raymond, relationship of, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And I'm like, well, you're not Batman now. That kind of thing. I always think it's fun for that show to play with. And I think those episodes do it really well.
Yeah. Like in this one, I mean, Terry, like he's runs to join this team. And tries to fit in until it's like, he's a Batman. So it doesn't quite work out the way he wants it to because he's still a Batman. He's still a Batman there.
Right.
Yeah.
And a Batman is not always a team player, even though
No.
Batman was in the Justice League for all that time.
Right.
But yeah,
They say part-timer, though. They point out
they
that he was a part-timer.
They said only part-timer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's just around a lot for a part-timer.
Which he did say a couple of times in the Justice League series, which is the weird, right? That we got this version of the Justice League, and then a series would come 2 years later, even though Tim was like very adamant, like, I'm not going to do Justice League ever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then,
I guess some of the other guys won him over.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, there were those rumblings in Wizard Magazine, getting back to that, about the possibility of, we've set up a bunch of stuff in Superman, so Justice League is inevitable.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember Bruce Timm was in on those inevitable conversations. I just think that people in and around those shows were like, we should do it.
Right.
And then they had mock-ups. Like they had, like one of the original group settings had Aquaman, but the Aquaman from Superman the Animated Series, not the hook-handed,
right,
long-haired one.
Yeah.
Right.
Not the Momoa.
Right.
but more of the Silver Agey Super Friends. That Aquaman, one was definitely in that first group,
which is who we get a picture of in this when you see Aqua Girl's file. It's like it's her father's the like Super Friends Aquaman, orange shirt, short blonde hair.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I mean, looking back at his interview in the Modern Masters, like he was very adamant. I'm never going to do Justice League at that time.
Right.
What year was that?
I think that was like 2000.
Okay.
Right. So it was when Justice League first started.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think the idea there that he was saying is he was so much so that like people were trying to get in like nods to the Justice League in earlier episodes of Batman Beyond, like things in storyboarding. Right. Were like, like as you glossed over like Bruce's entire life, there would be like rumblings of the Justice League here and there. And he would actually like have them take that stuff out. Like that's how much he was against it. And then this episode comes along. And the idea is that he was very unsure about how to stage the action with so many characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what scared him off. And I think so in a way, this episode, I think kind of made them realize like, oh, okay, it's manageable. It's just like any other time when we had like Batman and Batgirl and Robin like all in a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I was just looking up just some of the timeline here. So the call was November 11th of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And the Justice League premiered about a year later, I think.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the timeline we're looking at between these two.
This is a good one, though. And Frank, I remember this was when I was not really watching. I remember you gave me a VHS tape of this. You're like, watch this.
A VHS?
Yes. It was on, I gave him scrolls. I gave him stone tablets of the episode's synopsis with illustrations. But it was that long ago that I gave you a VHS copy of like, you got to see this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And even I don't think I was watching it that regularly either. I think I just saw like, Kids WB or whatever it was, kind of like, hey, it's a future Justice League.
Right.
Come check it out. And I did. And like I said, it's one of my favorites. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The voice cameos are interesting to go along with the character cameos.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have old Superman voiced by Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin, and Green Lantern's actually Lauren Tom doing double duty, or not double duty in this episode because I don't think Dana's in it, but double duty for the series.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aqua Girl is Jodie Benson. If you all remember, she's Little Mermaid. From The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
And then Micron. Do you all remember who Micron was voiced by?
I do not.
It's Wayne Brady, right?
It is Wayne Brady.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Current host of Let's Make a Deal.
Yeah, it's like 2 lines.
Yes. And it was enough where I was like, is that Wayne Brady?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was.
Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe he's happily strolling by or owed somebody a favor or something.
Well, I guess it would have been the like, whose line is it anyway days.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great one. I like that they also I like that the 2 parts feel connected, but they also feel very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the visual of Superman flying straight up.
No, just standing, coming coming horizontally but vertically, right?
Yeah,
like standing up but coming towards you.
It's an awesome visual.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. It does make him seem much more alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I always wanted to see a story. I mean, and maybe the comics, set in the Beyond universe did something with it, but I always wondered like why Superman changed his costume.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
which I guess what is they're interpreting is either futuristic or Kryptonian or both.
Right, exactly. And there is a slight resemblance to the Brave New World Superman costume.
Yeah.
Which our Superman never met him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't know if that's just like they just kind of think the design is kind of neat and sort of and they kind of did two similar ones, or if it was like if it's meant to be some kind of symbolic something that they're trying to say about it, right? Or you know what I mean? I've never known.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a story there.
Which one was the Brave New World? Was that Justice Lords?
Yeah, those are Justice Lords.
Okay,
Brave New World was Superman animated series.
Superman animated series.
A Better World was Justice Lords in Justice League.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Which when they designed that Superman, he was also in black and white. So,
right. Yeah.
So
that's
somebody over there
thinking.
really likes Superman in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of fun moments like just throughout that episode. And in the first part one, tons and tons of destruction. Tons of destruction in that episode.
Yeah.
Like terrifying amount where again, like the buildings falling over and people falling out of the windows.
It's such a great bit.
I mean, it is, but in the context of when it came out, like that's no cartoon is ever showing anything like that come very soon after this air. Like within the next year of this airing, they're going to be a lot more sensitive about that type of destruction.
Right, exactly. It's horrifying, but it's cool in the sense that like it's right. It gave the other character something to do. Superman stopping the building from coming over. Right. Miscalculates. People are coming out through the windows.
People just start pouring out the windows.
Yeah, it gives Warhawk and Lantern stuff to do, and it was a nice them feeling out the action sequences a bit, like feeling out how to stage them.
So harrowing.
But yeah, I'm with you. No way that gets done a year later.
Yeah.
No way. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Good one, Frank.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go with this is one of my favorites. This is early season 2. I think it may be the second or third episode. Earth Mover.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
The idea here is that there's tremors happening, like earthquake tremors happening like all over in Gotham City, and they seem to center around one of Terry and Dana's friends, Jackie, and her father.
Right.
Her adopted father, Bill, or as we come to find out.
Right.
And this one just does a lot of like really, really cool, like it's spooky and it's kind of a monster story. It's just really well done. I can't really put my finger on why I like this one so much, but I like that this one like has so many twists and turns and so many different feels with it, because it's such a like father-daughter story, but it's also like a monster movie, but it's also like a teen show. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites too. And like thinking about it, if you think of different comic things that might be influencing them, where we've gotten Silver Age stuff and we've gotten modern age stuff from comics, like just the feel of comics. This one to me feels like a 70s horror comic. From like Bronze Age horror, like your Swamp Thing, your Man Thing, not just because they're monsters, but just like Werewolf by Night, like that type of kind of melodrama combined with family, combined with a monster allegory, combined with all like, different things. It feels like a 70s horror comic of a Batman Beyond episode.
Got a lot of atmosphere.
Yeah. Like you said, it's creepy because I remember it starts with just Dana and Terry hanging out with their friend Jackie at her house, and she thinks she sees somebody out the window and thinks she's paranoid until Terry's like, no, there's something out there.
Yeah.
And just jumps out the side of the out the window and scales down the side of the house. Because he's like, no, like he goes into protector mode for, his friends. Which I thought was like a nice bit. Like he doesn't hesitate. He just jumps right out the window.
Yeah.
No chill at all.
No, none.
and that's just the start of it. Cause then he's you see something that, I don't know, like looks like somebody gets hit by a car and then they're not. Like there's lots of spookiness right from the beginning on that one. And then again, though, this is one where like we harken back to the genesis of the show, of them that we talked about last time, of them wanting to bring in kids.
Right.
Like they want to bring in kid audience. That's the whole point of that was the impetus of that and beyond, is to get younger viewers than they were getting with their other show. And then they make these like horrifying episodes that show like a corpse at one point in this episode is on screen a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it looks great. Like it's a great episode. But I was like, man, this is what you're bringing in. This is what you're trying to bring kids in with, huh? Because I think you went somewhere. I think you went astray somewhere if that was your goal. But they're making great episodes, so I'm not complaining.
What I like about this one too is that Clifton, you were saying how like you like the ones that feel very, very about Terry and sort of like the teen world of things.
Right. I like the Terry ones, the teenaging ones more than the Batman ones myself. Right. Yeah.
This one to me feels like a perfect blend of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We're like, here's his teen stuff, and then but it's also like a really good Batman episode too, I think.
Right.
Where he's doing his version of detectiving and trying to figure out what it is and what's going on. And just from like a script perspective, like I like sort of the reveal of the dad and how it's treated and how it's like, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, like that's in there just to sort of like make you feel a certain way so that when it flips,
right,
you're feeling this, but then it flips again. And
right.
and I just sort of like
they turn expectations a lot. They set up your expectations and then flip them over and over in this episode. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And just, I'll call out some of the voices on this one because I did look this one up recently after watching it again because it's one I wanted to be sure to see again myself. I just really like it. It's got their friend Jackie, who appears in this one. I don't think she appears in other ones, but I'm not sure. Is voiced by Lindsay Sloan, who was most known for Sabrina the Teenage Witch, where she was Sabrina's best friend Valerie, the sitcom, the 90s sitcom.
Okay.
And she was also in Bring It On. She played Big Red in Bring It On, one of the cheerleaders, which I'm a fan of that movie as well. And then it's got two TV dads voicing in this one, because you talked about Alex P. Keaton's dad,
right?
In the pilot as Terry's father. This one as Bill, Jackie's adoptive father, is Dan Lauria from Wonder Years. And then also as another character in this one is Stephen Collins, who is the father on Seventh Heaven.
Oh, okay.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, around the same time. Is around the same time as this was produced, I imagine. Was also. So we got two TV dads plus Sabrina's best friend. Those are the Easter egg voice talent of this episode.
Yeah. I wish Jackie showed up again. I don't think she does. I think this is her first appearance and her only one.
Yeah. Some of the friends show up. Chelsea shows up a few times. I was trying to think of like other people in the Dana and Terry world. Is it Blade? Is there a girl named Blade? Yeah, she shows up multiple times.
Yep.
Yeah,
Max,
but I don't think
course.
Jackie does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, Max. Yeah. Yeah. Would have been nice. That's the only thing I like. Just one of my general things about the show that I wish we saw more like consistent Terry world.
Yeah.
We get some. I just wish there was more. You can never have too many teen aspects of a show for me. So
right. Yeah, I agree. If you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things, if we're using Spider-Man as an analog here. I mean, what's a consistent thing there, right? Like supporting cast.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And it's here, but yeah, I think and then you do get people that just kind of like pop in for an episode or two and they're not really fleshed out a ton or you know, I like that the sense is just that like Dana is social and has a lot of friends.
Right.
That's the feel I get here.
Yeah.
Because it feels like Jackie's like a new friend.
Right.
Because they don't know like her family dynamic like really at all.
Yeah, like when she calls her dad Bill and they're like, you call him Bill? Like they don't know her that well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no, I really like this one. It's dark. It's eerie. It's got a lot of heart. Lots of twists and turns. It's a good one.
You got another one you like?
Yeah. This one, it's a good solid episode, but I'll get into what really stands out about it for me. But the episode is Hidden Agenda.
Is this Terminal?
Yes, it is Terminal.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Terminal.
Yeah. It's an episode where like Max, I think, is it Max's first episode? Or had she been around before?
I think it may be Max's first episode.
It's a very early episode of the supporting character Max, because it's in season 2. And we're introduced to a new Joker gang led by a very creepy leader. And as the mystery unfolds, we find out what his connection is as he's attacking Hamilton High and a new friend of Terry's. Seems to be targeting Max. And that's what this episode is about. And like I said, it's a solid episode, but the character Terminal is really the standout for me more so than a lot of other aspects. I just think he's a great villain for the show. Because what you have in Terminal is like we actually get to know a member of the Jokers, which we haven't yet in this show. Like the Jokers are always just kind of around as a gang. They're kind of, they're just like the catch-all hooligans. If you need conflict, there they are.
Yeah.
And now we actually get to meet one of them. And this one turns out to be basically like a mirror villain of Terry. To me, that's how I see him. Even though like he's fixated on Max, this Joker Terminal. But what we find out about him, we see him like, causing mischief. We see him like attacking random pedestrians like on their way to work and terrorizing people in general. And then we're introduced to Terry and Max in school and find out like she's a great student because she's getting top test scores while Terry's getting incompletes on his SATs or whatever because he's a terrible student. He's very smart, but not a good student. And then we're introduced to another character, Carter. Looks like an all-American letterman shooting for valedictorian of the school, wearing the Letterman jacket, like high achieving, like nice, good kid. And then we find out that he has a dark side and that he is terminal. So this kid who seems like the all-American student is putting on the Joker makeup at night and going out and terrorizing people. So when I talk about him being like a good mirror villain for Terry, you have Terry who's, like a troubled kid on the surface,
right?
Who's not a good student, despite being smart, who goes out at night and does good for the world. And then you have, on appearance, this good kid who's very smart and a good student, who's putting on this dark alter ego and going out and doing very bad for the world at night. So they're basically mirror images of each other to me. And the character Terminal is voiced very well by Michael Rosenbaum. And he's creepy and sadistic, and it's all about jealousy and insecurity when it comes down to him, because he's threatened by Max doing better in school than him, and that's what he has. And you see his home life a little bit, and his parents, his mom's situation of pressuring him to overachieve. And the real thing about this villain to me is that he's just almost too real.
Right.
It's almost too real. And again, this episode, I'm trying to remember what release this was. I think it's in the fall of 2000 that this episode aired, or 99. I can't remember for sure. I'll find that out. But more or less, it's a school shooter episode. More or less, this is the premise of a school shooter episode. In a time in the world when school shootings were not all that common yet.
Right.
So it was terrifying at the time, and it's terrifying in retrospect that it's all kind of become normal. But yeah, it's got that vibe. And again, I guess like we talked before about things they foresaw in the future.
Yeah.
And sadly, I think they might have been right about that one too.
Right. Yeah.
But he is a great villain. He is a terrifying villain.
You remember this one, Frank?
It sounds familiar. I don't know if it's one of those things where I would not have remembered that it was Rosenbaum. That's for sure.
Okay.
In a very like dry, deadpan, creepy voice. Not his Flash voice.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No, it's a really good one. I like it felt a lot too like they were motivated on some level to sort of like give the Joker some teeth because they've been kind of like Worf affected for a little while, right? Where they were like they started off as sort of kind of like cool and like fearsome in the pilot, right? Where Dana again is like get out of here, like you know, like and then over a season of you know you need some goons, so throw them in, and then Batman makes short work of them. I think like this is the first time the Joker's felt kind of scary and formidable again in a while, and the terminal design is awesome. I mean, I think it does a lot of lifting for that too. On top of his you know ill characterization, quite frankly,
his demeanor,
But it's an awesome design with the straight jacket and he's kind of like a zombie. Did he have like the stitched lips makeup?
Yeah, it's kind of like the skullish makeup with like the lines on the mouth, and it's a great design.
Yeah, it's really good.
But yeah, that's the standout for me is basically his character in that. It is a good solid episode, but man, that's one of their best villains to me because again, like the teenage aspect, like it's very real. It's a very real villain. And the show itself, that episode itself does kind of like play into the mirror aspect of Terminal versus Batman, of Carter versus Terry, in that they're like one of the things in the episode is Max trying to figure out who it is and getting confused because like she starts to think Terminal could be Terry because of things she's detecting about him, and like it really does play up that mirror aspect of their characters.
Yeah, I love that one. Frank, you got some more?
Yeah, I've got another one. This was another one that's from third season. It's the 5th episode. I had not seen it when it first aired, and I actually had this episode spoiled for me, and I still really do love it. And it's Out of the Past.
Okay.
And the idea is it starts off with Terry and Bruce go out for Bruce's birthday, and they attend a performance of The Legend of Batman.
Oh, right. Yes.
Which is basically a musical based on Batman's life.
Yes. Do you remember you going to sing the number from
No,
the
I was
musical?
going to ask Zach to do it because I don't want to get it right. Go ahead, Zach.
Superstitious, cowardly lot.
Right.
That's it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it basically, it has the reappearance of Talia al Ghul, and it's a temptation episode of, as as Grant Morrison said on Kevin Smith's podcast, the daughter of the devil is basically tempting Bruce with this offer of basically, listen, I can put you in, I can give you the Lazarus pit, and you can have it all back.
Yeah,
you don't have to sit here, kind of moldering away, basically trying to keep this kid in line and keep Batman alive, and it's great. And again, it's got a great setup. It's got a great open, and when it floors you, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you had told me about this one, and
yeah,
and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Like, of course.
I got it spoiled. Like I knew, the whole thing. Someone basically told me the whole premise, and even upon watching it, I'm like, this is great. Had I not known all of it, that would have been great too. But as an episode, it's terrific. I love this one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a bit of a weird one in the sense that, I mean, this is a Bruce episode for sure.
Yeah.
But I think also like a Bruce episode more so than usual. Like Terry's almost a supporting character in this one, which is, I mean, there have been Bruce heavy episodes, but I don't think to this degree.
Right.
But I do think that, I mean, but that's kind of like the hook of that episode is Terry's a little bit like, well, geez, like, if you use the Lazarus pit and suddenly like basically the fountain of youth and you could be young again, like what am I doing here?
Right.
Right. Like, are you going to want to take the suit back? Like,
Yep, absolutely. So I urge you to go watch this one. Don't let it get spoiled for you. We're not going to spoil it here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. I love this one.
And it's a perfect, duh villain, of course. Of course,
Right.
break your rule for this one.
Sure.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's Dini too, right? Dini wrote this one?
Yeah.
With Hilary Bader.
Oh, okay. Very good. Well,
yep.
Equally good writer. But yeah, the two of them together would be, you know, a force. But yeah, this is a great one. I highly recommend it. See it quick. If you know, especially if you know nothing about it. So go see it right now. And then come back and listen to it.
Yeah, it's got some turns. It's got some twists.
Yeah, for sure.
Some big twists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cheat and lump two together that I think are it's not a two-parter, but they're connected very much. And it's Shriek.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do also connected to it Babel, which is his return episode.
Okay.
And so Shrink was the sound-based bad guy.
Right.
That they came up with, I believe, in reading about the development. Shriek was one of the characters that had a visual design first, and then we're like, oh, that looks cool. Like, what's sort of his shtick?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like a sound engineer that has a suit that's able to manipulate sound outside of him, so he can sort of like isolate, you know, make you hear things that aren't there. He can drop sound, and which the reason I think that first episode is wonderful is that sequence at the end, that action sequence at the end where he drops all the sound out and Batman is basically fighting in silence and can't and he's in like an automotive plant or something like that.
Yeah, it's like an assembly line, like a robot assembly line.
He's in like an industrial assembly line, and there's all kinds of like huge machines that can do all kinds of damage to you if you don't hear that you're close to one.
Right.
And Shriek's noise canceled everything for 100 yards in all direction.
Yeah.
So there's no sound. Nobody can hear anything. Except for Shriek. Shriek can like tune in and hear Terry's footsteps, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like that's how he follows, but he's like locked in on one sound but blocked out all the rest of the sound.
Yeah. That sequence, their sequences were always great and fun, and I always loved the action about it, but that was the first one that like really like stood out. It was like, whoa, that was cool. Like almost like a Samurai Jack episode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though like that would be even though that would be a thing that, you know, is coming in a few years. But it seems almost like a Gendy hook to me.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Yeah, and because in that episode where when Shriek shuts off the sound and you're watching Terry like stumble around and accidentally, you know, almost get hit by all these things he doesn't know are there because he can't hear them. Like if he has his back to it and it shows up, he doesn't know it's there. And then they do start to bring in like score music, if you remember, in that scene. So they're still leaving off like all sound effects. You're not hearing any world noises, but they bring in some music as it goes. So you're just getting basically kind of like a silent film action scene, but with orchestra playing. And I brought up some of the special DVD special features, you know, last episode that they have on season 1's DVD set. And one of the special features they have on that set is where they do that with other scenes. They want to show off like how much work the music does, how much work the composers were doing, even though a lot of it, you know, kind of gets buried under other noise, like the different sci-fi noises, the different action noises, dialogue, whatever. So they showed a couple scenes where they, from various episodes, where they took out all sound except for the score, just to show you like how much emotional work the music was doing. And I thought this was interesting in this episode where they do that, but just really in the episode, not as like a bonus feature. Like that's what this episode really is it turns to be showing you eventually, one, how hard a world without sound would be. And then they really do like, as they slowly bring up orchestra and score into it, it shows you how much work that score does, because they start like really ramping up the action to like musical crescendos and stuff. I noticed on my rewatch, which I thought was really cool overall about that episode. Like an episode about sound, it shows you how like absence of sound is important, how musical sound is important. Like it kind of gets a little meta on a lot of levels.
It does. Yeah. And it's got a cool subplot with Bruce in the insane asylum.
Right.
Because he's making him think that he's hearing stuff.
Yeah. Bruce is hearing voices.
And it's just sort of like, it just, Shriek just had like so many ways. It was a hook for a bad guy. It never really occurred to me would be cool.
Right.
And I'm like, man, there is like so many different ways to come at you.
Yeah.
You know?
And in just Shriek in general, in the design, like, I mean, he's obviously a science guy. He's obviously super smart engineer that he can build this suit. Like he knows everything about acoustics. He knows everything about audio physics. But then his design kind of looked like a musician a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't look like a scientist. He's built for one. Like he's jacked.
Yeah.
But he's got like a goatee. He's got like kind of a buzz cut. Like he looks more like a musician or a bouncer than like a tech engineer. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's some cool choices.
Yeah. It definitely looked like he wired a couple of band shows.
Yeah.
And ran the board.
Yeah. He's like a roadie. He looks like a roadie.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a roadie for a metal band.
No, he's just, like I say, he's just such a really cool bad guy, and just sort of he's one of the real new bad guys that I think felt like really classic.
Right.
You know, and then and certainly his ending in Shriek just sort of culminates in that, and then which makes his return in Babel, like you understand like why he's pissed. He's pissed at Terry.
Oh, yeah. Right. Babel I don't remember as well.
Oh, you don't remember that one as well?
Not as well as his first appearance.
So that one opens up with, again, like another really cool like sound attack. Basically, like he makes animals in the zoo like kind of go nuts, right? By having them react to something that only they can hear.
Okay.
And so there's a cool bit in that one where Batman's fighting a zoo, essentially, which sounds bizarre, but it's really, really neat. And there's all kinds of like cool little bits in that. And then like the suit gets damaged in there. So you see how like Terry and Bruce like repair the suit.
Okay.
And stuff like that. And then there's a moment where you're getting a sense that Batman is a hero and the public is regarding him as one. And then Shriek basically calls out Terry, not by Terry. He doesn't know that Terry's Batman, but he's calling out Batman. I'm just saying Terry for that to distinguish for Bruce.
Yeah.
Calls him out, and basically, and what he does is he's manipulated the sound in the city so that nobody can understand each other when they're speaking.
Okay.
Right. And then he's like, this is going to continue until Batman turns himself into me. Right. And then the story is like, you see like how very quickly like Batman, this hero in the city, like people turn on him. Right. And people that know that Terry is Batman are like, he's going to turn himself in, right? And it's a cool moment of like Bruce defending Terry.
Yeah.
You know? But it's just a really, really cool, like, what's Terry going to do? And it's a moment for me where he becomes like a true hero. He does like a very like heroic thing, you know? And it's an awesome return episode. It's as good as they come, I think.
Right.
So back in the first Shriek episode, it does have the moment you mentioned where Bruce thinks he's going crazy. It does have the moment where Bruce, says he knew he was never going crazy. And Terry asks why. And Bruce says, because the voices were calling me Bruce, and that's not what I call myself. So that's one of the famous lines, I think, that people latched on to.
It's a bit far.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it is one that people latched on to a lot.
Yeah.
People do like that line.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shriek, I love Shriek too. I love the design. I love, I was talking about his human design, but I love his suit design too.
Yeah.
I love he fits in that world so well. He's such a product of the show, I think, and fits in the context of the show as one of their standout high tech futuristic villains.
Yeah. And the show did villains well a number of times, I think. I think this may have been their rule thing. I don't want to spoil too many more episodes for people, but by bringing this up, but it is one of those things where it's like our own Tommy Smithereens, offline off of the show would tell us this anytime Batman Beyond came up. It was like, man, you don't want to go up against Terry because a lot of those villains don't come back.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
And yeah.
And it is true. He's right. But I do wonder, in thinking about that, is it the fact that they're just new villains that's making us go they're gone? Because I had this moment, right? where I'm thinking about, it's a TV show, right? So nobody outright dies in front of you, right?
Yeah.
It's always like,
True.
it's always falling off a cliff, something falls on them, etc. Right? It's always kind of nebulous. And it makes me go about like all the times the Joker in past episodes were like laughing fish. He falls into the water and there's a shark there. Joker's dead, right? No, he's not.
Right.
He comes back, right? And then it's like world's finest. Joker's dead, right? After the Lex Wing thing. No, he's not. He's
No,
back,
he's not.
right? Mad Love. He gets kicked off the train into the smokestack, right? He's dead,
Smokestack,
right?
yeah.
They say like we haven't found the body. No, he's fine. He comes back. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think there's something there where like the familiarity of the Joker, that like, you know, he's going to come back. They're always going to use him again. Right? And so I wonder if it's just that like we feel like they're gone because there's not that like built in place where like you're not going to kill the Joker.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Could be. It's not a bad explanation. Sure.
So I lost track on whose turn is it? Is it Clifton? Is it your turn?
Yeah. But we might want to start getting into epilogue for Frank.
Oh yeah.
Unless you all have some others to bring up, because we can save that one suitably for the end.
Okay.
Epilogue?
Yeah.
Frank, you want to do epilogue, or is there another one you want to get into?
No, I'm good with doing epilogue. Let's do epilogue.
Okay.
Did you have any more, Zach?
I got the one thing that I want to throw out is splicers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And this is one that I changed my mind on because I did not like this episode initially. It seemed kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came around to it when I realized like, oh, how cool. Like this is a world building culture thing. Like this is their tattoos.
Right.
This is their piercings. They're
Right.
doing this.
Yeah.
They're splicing their DNA with animal DNA to you know, give them cat eyes and
leopard spots.
Yeah. And then
tongues.
of course, and then you just comic book it up and you know, make them have a power similar to whatever animal that they're using the visual with. And and I thought that was a cool like world building episode. And I like that again, that like it felt like a young plot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's one where we were thinking last episode, we were talking about like the technology of the world just broadly and some of the things they were predicting. And this one, obviously we haven't gotten there yet. But when I watched the episode, I was like, no, like I could see that being a thing. If it were possible, people would do it. And we haven't gotten there yet, but I feel like we're always not far off from like some sort of genetic engineering fad. It'll happen eventually.
Right.
They might be a little early, but it'll happen. It'll happen eventually. It feels real to me. It feels inevitable to me as you know, just people wanting to express themselves in different ways. And it's something that I think someday will happen.
Yeah. No, it's a cool one. It's I dig that one. So all right, so as promised, so we will get into epilogue, which is not a Batman Beyond episode. It's a Justice League Unlimited episode, but it's a very Batman Beyond centric one. So we'll get into that one. Do you, Frank? Do you want to hit the Kronos one first?
Oh, which one? The one that's Weird Western Tales. That one, and then
yeah, because that's I mean, the epilogue takes up all the oxygen in the room. Understandably so, which is what we'll get. But you know, I think a lot of people forget that Terry shows up in another episode before that.
True, you're right. He does,
and that was kind of like a holy cow moment. I remember because it was right, because at that point this is end of season 3 of Justice League, so it'd been like we hadn't seen Terry in forever, right? You know, so for him to come back was like, oh wow, this is awesome. You know,
right. Yeah, Weird Western Tales is the introduction of the villain Kronos, who's a time-traveling villain. Generally, he's an Adam Ray Palmer villain, traditionally, but he fought the Justice League in like the Secret Society of Supervillains and other stuff. But basically, it's you know, you get a story of Weird Western Tales, which is John Stewart, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman are in the Old West. They meet up with like Bat Lash and Jonah Hex.
Yeah,
remember that correctly?
El Diablo or something, right? Isn't there another one?
Yeah, there's like some old DC Western characters are in there. It's a lot of fun. But the other one is the Once and Future thing. that the second part?
Yeah, part 2. Yep.
Right. So Once the Future thing is basically those same 3 characters are now in the future, and they meet up with it's got some reintroduction of some of the villains from the Jokers that were the group that was with in Return of the Joker, the movie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they've got that, and then you've got Old Man Static, which is a nice bit.
Yeah.
You can see Static as an adult, again voiced by
Is it Phil Lamar?
Yeah, I believe it's Phil Lamar in that one too. Because I think when we saw him in the panel that time at the Comic-Con, he did the progression of young Virgil to old Virgil, and then did Jon Stewart and how the voices were different. If I remember correctly, I could be remembering that.
Oh yeah, that's right. He did do that.
Yeah, but yeah, he did the voice for that. But you do have a great moment of current Batman, Kevin Conroy meeting old man Batman, Kevin Conroy, and then Will Friedle, right, doing Terry.
Yeah.
Right. So you have Batman, Bruce, Batman, or Batman, depending on how you look at where they have they have a moment of and there's a play. There's also a bit in there where I think he said something along the lines of about getting back, like they know they get back.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in there? Am I remember that right?
There was a bit where they use it as a plot. Is like, well, we win, right? Because obviously old man Bruce is here, and he's like, right, except I don't have any memory of this.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's time travel trope stuff, depending on what, how your rules of time travel work and whatever you're presenting. It also reminded me of, there's a line in Jonah Hex at one point after Crisis becomes, it's almost like Hex Beyond, for lack of a better term. Because Jonah Hex becomes like a gunslinger, but he's a gunslinger out of time in the he's almost like Buck Rogers, like hundreds of years in the future, and it's kind of a nuclear wasteland. But there's a moment towards the end of his series where he runs into, and this is a spoiler for, I mean, it's not continuity because again, Jonah Hex appears whenever he wants to and stuff, or whenever someone wants to dust him off and use him, but he runs into a taxidermied version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, I guess I make it back.
Right. This is in the books. This isn't in the episode.
And this is the comics. This is the comics, not the episode. But it reminded me of that, of like, oh, well, we must be all right or whatever because of this. But again, that's one possible ending for a character in a myriad of possible endings. But yeah, those episodes are great, although they're technically not Batman Beyond episodes.
Right. They're not. It's just cool because you see the future Justice League again, right? Like Warhawk's in there.
Right.
And for me, it's neat to see that Static made it to the Justice League.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we could do a whole episode on just Static DC character appearances.
Yeah.
Those episodes are always great. Those were a lot of fun.
Which maybe a lot of listeners didn't know that, but Static Shock, the animated series from like 2003 on Kids WB, had a handful of episodes where like Superman guest starred and Green Lantern guest starred and like Jon Stewart from Justice League and Batman is in like one or two. Did Terry guest star in one of them also?
I want to say yes, but I can't remember because I haven't watched the episode in a while. But I think there's also one with like the entire Justice League and Static, but I could be wrong about that too.
Yeah.
It could be one starts out with one hero and then by the end it's the Justice League, but don't quote me because it's been a while.
Yeah.
But those are some fun episodes too.
Yeah. So epilogue.
And much to say, go on. So epilogue. Epilogue is the season finale for season 2 of Justice League Unlimited. It starts out with an older Terry, probably somewhere in his 30s, that nebulous 30s, that a lot of superheroes like Batman and Superman lived in for decades. Anyway, shows up at Amanda Waller's demanding answers, and he wants to know, obviously if Terry's in his 30s, it's a good 15 years after Batman Beyond, right?
Yeah.
50 to 20, maybe?
Yeah.
No, he'll be 15 or so. Anyway, he's found out that he's a match for Bruce Wayne, who's suffering from like kidney failure, and he wants to know how this is possible.
Right.
And then he goes to confront Amanda Waller, who Amanda Waller is, has got, as they say about Nick Fury, Amanda Waller's secrets have secrets. She's the one who holds all the keys to a lot of these secrets. So she basically starts laying out all these things about it. It's a great episode because it's a great Batman episode because you really get some really nice, great Bruce Wayne Batman stuff. You have Terry stuff, and it's all sort of like weaving together things that maybe were there from the beginning, maybe they weren't. I don't know, because it's one of those things where I've never really got a definitive answer as if they knew from the beginning.
You thought they knew when they created it?
Well, here's the thing. When we talked about the pilot, that I didn't want to say right off the bat, but one thing I did look for this time around that I never really looked for before was just genetic markers.
Right.
Right. And the simplest thing is they have the same eye color.
Right.
like if you look at like the color palette that's used for both of them, at least if you're going with New Adventures of Batman and Robin, that from like the Red Sky stuff.
Yeah.
That design for Bruce absolutely has the same color.
Yeah, because that design for Bruce is blue eyes.
Yes.
Whereas the Justice League, I think sometimes he's black dots.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like a blue, sort of a slate gray, and they both have that sort of bluish slate grayish look. But it's just one of those. Again, we don't know. Like they, I don't know if they knew at the time. And are we going to spoil this? Should we spoil it?
I think we should. I think it's hard to talk about it without.
And this is your warning to turn away if you don't.
Right. If you haven't watched this episode, if you're in the midst of a Batman Beyond a thon, come back to this because we're going to talk about epilogue. And 3, 2, 1.
Yep.
So basically, in the episode, you find out that Terry checks his DNA. He finds out that he's Bruce's genetic son, and he thinks that Bruce Wayne has possibly or probably manipulated things so that he would be his successor. And you have this whole bit where his whole life starts to unravel because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he wants to continue being Batman. He doesn't want to know if he wants to stay with Dana. Should he quit being in the Justice League? All this stuff starts to come apart on him, right? And then that's when Amanda Waller starts flipping over cards, saying this is what happened. And, there's a great line about Batman's DNA being all over town, which always makes me laugh. But it has the great bit with bringing up the Royal Flush Gang. But yeah, basically the idea that Terry's parents needed to be some kind of genetic match for Batman's parents. Is that right? Do you remember that right?
Well, they had the same circumstances as Batman's parents.
Yeah.
They were personality wise.
Gotcha.
Like Thomas and Martha.
That's
how I remember it.
Okay. But anyway, they basically they basically make it so that Bruce is his father via insemination. Is that the right way to put it?
Yes. They overwrote Terry's father's reproductive material with Bruce Wayne's.
Okay.
So any reproductive genes would be Bruce's and not Terry's father's.
Right.
Is what happened.
Right. And after and I won't spoil the part with the Royal Flush Gang, but Waller realizes that Bruce is his drive and his compassion and his sanctity of life is what the world needs, and the world needs a Batman, and she's gonna create one.
Right. Because because Bruce is getting too old.
Right, because Bruce is going to get old and die.
Bruce is going to get old and die eventually, and so she's gonna engineer Batman somehow.
Right. So they found Terry's parents.
Right. They found Terry's parents. Warren McGuiness, Terry's dad, goes into basically like a checkup or something like that, and Waller
thinks
with her
getting
connection,
a flu shot.
He's getting a flu shot, and really that flu shot is overriding his reproductive DNA with Bruce Wayne's. Right. And so he's conceived by Warren and Mary McGuiness, but he's the genetic material of Mary McGuiness and Bruce Wayne.
Right. He's 100% biologically Bruce Wayne's son.
Right.
Biologically.
Yeah.
Right.
And then what Waller says is that's only one part of it, right? Because the Batman's genetics is one half of it, but the tragic circumstance, gives him the drive. And so the second part of that was she was going to orchestrate the murder of the McGuiness family right in front of Terry as a child.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. To set up a similar circumstance to give Terry a drive to become Batman. And it's a cool little Easter egg thing that they make it the Phantasm, the hitman that's supposed to do it, to do the job. She gets cold feet about it, doesn't want to do it, and chickens out, and so the job doesn't happen, and Warren and Mary McGuiness go on and live their lives, and then things happen anyway. Warren McGuiness is killed anyway,
right?
And life intervenes, and Terry McGuiness is still somehow becoming Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the one we disagree on because I hate this episode.
Right.
There's aspects of the episode I like, but the thrust of the episode I hate. It does nothing for me.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love this one because again, it's one of those things of it is as Zach and I talk about things, the circle is a little too tight, but at the same time, I do like the fact that they try to make it all fit. I don't know if it necessarily needed to fit. I question again. I don't know if it's there's no way to tell. Again, I still don't know if it's definitive or not. Whether or not they meant to do.
We'll get into that. Hang on.
Okay.
I'll poll everybody about that. I'll just say,
okay,
I love this episode.
Okay,
I absolutely love this episode,
as you should.
And I'll disagree with both of you here, where I don't think the circle's too tight on this one at all.
No, okay.
I would if it wasn't the orchestration of somebody who is basically the greatest puppet master in all of the DC universe.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I like that everything is going all according to plan until one instance where it doesn't.
Right.
And I like that somehow fate intervenes anyway. And Clifton, I know, and we've talked about this a million times, offline. So there's a shorthand in this conversation, but like, to paraphrase what we're talking about is I like that it doesn't come down on the side of is it fate or is it free will?
Okay.
Right. I like that it leaves it open.
Mm-hmm.
Although in the context of this universe is that Amanda Waller's plans always work. And that's still the case here. Her theory is if I inject him with Batman DNA and he has tragedy equals Batman, and it's quantified. And she's right. In the end, she's right.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like. Because to me, it subtracts not just from Terry, but also from Bruce. Because it quantifies what makes a Batman.
Right.
And it's Bat midichlorians.
That formula is all you need?
Yes.
Okay.
This DNA plus tragedy in any context doesn't even have to be the one she thought. As long as it happens somewhere, the equation works out. And that's what I don't like about it.
Gotcha.
Right. And so we agree to disagree on that.
I don't think they predicted it.
Yeah, I like the is it nature, is it nurture, it's both kind of situation. But I agree with you here. I don't think that this is the plan at the get-go from Batman Beyond. I don't think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like I've combed enough interviews from these guys and DVD special features and everything. And the shocking thing to me is when you get to Justice League, you realize, I think, how much of it was just sort of like happy accidents and like, oh, like we can connect this dot with that dot.
Right.
Right. Because for 3 series, Batman, Superman, Batman Beyond, they didn't operate under a strict like continuity. We're setting this up, and this is gonna be called back in season 2. Not a whole lot of that.
Right. No, you're right. Because again, like I said, that was one of the things I mentioned about this was it's one of the ones that really does feel like, oh, there should be a continuity to this.
Right. Like I said, like it took 3 seasons of Batman Beyond to basically like concretely show us something that we saw in another show. Right, as a callback. It's the first time we got a callback to another thing that happened in another series. Right?
Right.
And just to hear the way that like Dwayne McDuffie, who was a producer on Justice League, like talk about like, oh, like that can connect to like the Dr. Milo stuff and everything when they're like putting the Cadmus arc together. So I think they saw an instance where it's like there's nothing that was done to contradict this.
So we can use it.
So we can do it. It's fair game.
Yeah. That's
my opinion. I don't know. I mean
no, I don't think you're wrong. I would not argue that you're wrong in that situation. I think it's a fair thing of, like you said, I believe they saw the various pieces and they're like, oh yeah, we can sew this all up. And again, I don't mind the fact that they did it. I just think sometimes it's like, the idea that the only hit person that they could get was Waller, I think, would have known the story behind who she was hiring.
Right.
And even with Hurt Feelings or An Axe to Grind, I don't think that the Phantasm was going to be the one to do that. Knowing what she...
And they freely admit, too, that the Phantasm is there as an Easter egg. And there's no, like, real plot reason why it had to be her.
No.
It's just sort of like, oh, that would be cool.
No, I mean, knowing what the audience knows about that character and knowing what the character knows about Bruce, I don't think that was even, how that even was a thing that even got past. It's a fine idea, but at the same time, there's other choices.
Now, what I will say is I don't really like the way that fans speak about this episode, because what it does is I feel like it's talked about in a very lazy way, where it's like, oh, he's his father. I'm like, no, Warren McGuiness was still out there and raised him.
Right.
When we meet Terry, he's living with him.
Right.
Right. Like that doesn't discount like the effect that Warren McGuiness had. I'm like, Warren McGuiness is his dad.
Sure, of course.
I think about Yondu in right in Guardians too. Like, he wasn't, he was your father, but he wasn't your daddy. Like,
right, exactly, right.
Until later, one sort of.
Right. But again, it's never, you don't have, again, there's nothing that I know of from the episodes of the series that makes you think, well, Bruce knew, right?
Bruce Wayne or Bruce Timm?
Bruce.
Sorry.
Yes. Both.
Yeah, both.
Both. Neither one of them knew that was the case. No Bruce at all knew. Right.
I mean, it is kind of funny in it's been a while since I've seen the episode. I can't remember my sense of it. I don't think that Bruce Wayne throughout the series of Batman Beyond knows either.
No, I don't think he does.
You could convince me maybe because he's a detective and he knows everything, especially in that unit.
Sure.
Right. But at the same time, I don't know why he would have that hunch.
Right. I don't either.
Right.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I also don't know like how in your face your own genetic material is in 50 years in the future, right? I don't know, right? Like that's one thing you could convince me either way. I don't really have a dog in that race, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Clifton?
I mean, he seems to know before this episode, before the events and epilogue, he seems to know.
Right.
Terry accuses him of it, and he's like, how would I even have done that? But he's not saying, like, he's not doubting it's a thing.
Right.
He's not saying that's impossible. He's just saying, I didn't do it.
Right.
I'm not the one who did it.
But
he's not denying that it's a thing that happened.
Yes. No, you're right about that. Certainly that Bruce knows. Right. 65 years in the future, Bruce Wayne knows.
Right.
Before Terry knew.
Yeah.
The key is like, when did he know? Did he know somewhere in the 50 years in the future, like during the Batman Beyond series, or did he find out sometime in between those time periods of the two shows?
Yeah.
Confusing to talk about.
Right. This had a little tidbit about old Bruce Wayne, the design. Because in the developmental special features, they talked about like one of their initial designs of Bruce Wayne was like super grizzled and super haggard and had like a scar and like a dead eye, like a clouded over eye. And they referred to it as their Boris Karloff design. And they said that the Jamie Kilner, the vice president of Warner Brothers development, who had come up with the Batman Beyond show in the first place, or, brought them all into the room to bring it up together. They said he loved that design, that he loved that like super grizzled, like he was really into that design. And I think that's this design. I think the one they talked about then was the one that they brought back for this old Bruce Wayne, because it doesn't have it doesn't quite have the dead eye, but it does have the cut and the scar over the eye. So I don't know what happened in his older years in those 15 years that he got chopped up some more, but
he falls on something.
Yeah. But I thought that was like a fun little Easter egg if you'd been following development, that they had talked about that before, the Boris Karloff design. And I think this is it. I think they dusted it off and brought it back for this.
Well, the fact that when we finally do get the reason why he has a limp, there's a nice bit too.
Yeah.
But that's not, we talked about that in another episode.
Right.
Dealing with
exactly. And we should point that out too, that we didn't talk about Return of the Joker, but we did a full episode reviewing Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, the video. So, any last thoughts about Batman Beyond before we close out? Anything at all?
Still a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Still holds up.
I enjoyed watching the episodes that I went back and watched. I was getting into them.
I think it's time for it to come back in some way.
Yeah. Batman Beyond.
Clifton, I've been wanting to see him and Young Justice.
Yes.
I want Terry and Young Justice so bad for an episode, for something.
Yeah.
I think that would be very, very, very cool. But it does shock me how little of it has been used since. I mean, like just how long we had to wait for a comic series, like just for DC to add it into
main continuity.
And I'm air quoting canon. You can't even see me. I'm air quoting canon because I don't even know if it is canon in DC universe, right?
Yeah, I don't know either.
I mean, it took a shockingly long time.
At this point, I believe it is. At this point, I believe it's that nebulous time of like the time of the Great Disaster or the Atomic Knights,
right?
The idea of like in the future, not the Legion of Superheroes future, but the future, there'll be a Batman Beyond, there'll be a Terry McGuiness of some sort, but not a firm this is the end date for Bruce Wayne and therefore Terry. Nope, nothing like that.
Yeah. So I want to see it come back for sure. I'm surprised it hasn't been rebooted. I know that there's talk of every once in a while live action movie.
Yep.
Gets talked about, which I think would be awesome. It'd be very, very cool. I think it would look great. I don't want Michael Keaton to play him. Stop it. Because I don't want. Granted, I still haven't seen Flash yet, but I don't want what that conversation opens up. We're like, whoa, this suit's connected to Batman 89, Batman Beyond, Batman 89. Nope, stop it. I have no patience for it. However, I will say I have a weird person I would like to see attached to a live action Batman Beyond. Okay. And that's Michael Kaplan. Do you know Michael Kaplan?
No.
I know the name.
He's a costume designer.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but these two things kind of exist together for me. He did Star Trek Into Darkness.
Okay.
Right? And Star Trek Into Darkness did a whole lot of like you got to see the future Earth. I'm not a huge Trekkie, but I do, but I like those movies, but I like the look of those movies with what he did with like futuristic style and everything. And like it looked contemporary, but it also looked obviously not of today. A lot of leather, a lot of textured fabrics and everything. I see that movie and I always think Batman Beyond for some reason.
Okay.
So, okay.
Did they have lapels? Because they can't have lapels in Batman Beyond.
That's right.
Nobody can wear lapels.
I think Bruce Timm and them are wrong about that. I know that's what they said. They were like, that's the future cut is that there's no lapels on anything.
Although I think one of them did point out that it was really possibly just because they had been drawing double-breasted suits for for years by that point on Batman the Animated Series that they were like, I don't want to draw any more lapels.
Right. Yeah.
And that's possibly what was the driving factor in that design decision. And then they just said, okay, in the future people won't have lapels.
Yeah.
But really, they were just tired of drawing lapels.
Right.
Possibly.
No, it's a great series. I enjoyed going back over it. So we got to hit Justice League at some point now, guys. We did the other three.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sure we'll get around to it. So
Yep.
all right. Okay. All right, if you guys want to suggest a topic, let us know in the comments on whatever Twitter X is being called right now, handle LMKHII, or you can email us at info@letmeknowhowitis.com. You can find links and examples to everything we talked about in this episode posted on letmeknowhowitis.com, where you can also check out all of our past episodes. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review, and we will see you guys next time. Have a good one.